Hello everyone, welcome to the 19th tutorial in the series of Complete Guide to React.js. In this tutorial, we are going to see what are the other ways to bind an event handler. In the last tutorial, we have seen how to bind an event handler using this keyword, and we have also mentioned that this keyword over here, and we have binded an event, but using this, that would cause a lot of performance issue. The reason is you're binding this keyword with this keyword over here. So each and every time when I'm clicking a button, binding an event would cause a performance issue. So in order to avoid it, I'll tell you the other three. I have another three approaches where you can bind an event. There are many number of ways where you can bind an event, where you can just search on the internet, and which is these concepts are related to JavaScript and they are not belong to React.js. And in this, I'm going to explain you how to bind an event with a better approach. So at first, I'm going to comment the code whichever I have written yesterday. So for that, what I'm going to do is I have to open a braces, slash, and asterisk, and I'm just going to put the close braces at the end of the code, like where I'm going to comment with star, slash, and the close braces. So I have commented the first approach, and in the second approach, what I am going to do is I'm going to copy the code whichever I have written for my previous tutorial, and I'm going to remove the code for this dot bind this. And this approach is we would bind an event based on a arrow functions. So how to do that? You have to put a bracket equal to greater than open braces and close braces, and in this you have to mention this dot click handler. And in fact, you don't need this open braces and close braces because it is a single line. If it is a multiple line, then what you have to mention is you have to mention another open braces and close braces, and you have to take that things into a control. So right now I'm going to click on save, and let's see in my browser like what happens. So it refreshes. I'll refresh one more time, and it just gives me the set message by the default set message over here. I'm going to click on class login. So over here it should be with the bracket. So I forget that. So you also take care of it. And right now click on save, and then click on class login. The alert messages whichever we have not removed in the previous tutorial, it is showing it over here, and you can see that it sets the message. So this is one approach. And the second approach is you can bind this event in the constructor itself. So how to do that? I'm just copying the code whichever I have written for the first tutorial. After setting the message setting the state message, I'm going to write this dot click handler equal to this dot click handler dot bind, and in that I'm passing this. So you can ask me a question. You said that using this bind over here is causing a performance issue, and you're using it over here in the constructor. Yes, using it as the constructor, what happens is this class would load only once, and the constructor is also will be loaded at the once, and hence placing this code over here is safe, but placing the code on the on click is would cause some problem. And what is that problem is, like as I said at the start of the tutorial, there will be some lot of performance issues, and you're binding at this keyword in this, and JavaScript would get confused, like if I call this, which content I have to show it over here. And I'm going to remove this particular content, and I'm going to mention it as click handler. this dot click handler, and let's see what happens. Over here I'm refreshing it. Once I refreshed, it shows hi, how are you, an object, and it's saying I'm doing good. And make a note, in the third approach I have not put the bracket, open bracket and close bracket over here, but despite that it worked fine. So you have to use that open bracket and the close bracket only when we are using a bracket like this, equal to and greater than symbol. This is some ES6 syntax, and this is the way of recommended way of using the code. So this is nothing in lies with React.js. So I don't want you guys to get confused whenever I am using this, and that's why I'm explaining all the stuff in this particular tutorial. So this is the third approach that we have seen. I'm going to comment this as well, and I'm going to tell you the fourth approach in which we are going to use this. So the fourth approach is nothing but what I'll be doing is, this is the most commonly way of using the code in recent times in calling a click handler. I mean in calling an event handler. So in that way, in this button, I'm going to mention it as this dot click handler, and I am going to comment the code whichever I have written in the previous approach. I'm also going to remove this. Instead of removing it, what I'll do is I'll place it over here itself. Like in this click handler, I'll mention it as a variable or constant like this, equals to, and equals to a method, and that method is nothing but this. So this is another way of ES6 syntax way of representing a function. So I'm going to mention that I'm going to call this dot click handler. So this dot click handler is nothing but a variable. Over here it is anonymous, like it is not a variable or a constant. And most of the times we would mention as a constant because it is not going to change it. So over here I'm going to assign some variable or constant which is equal to a function, and it would declare this particular function. By calling this click handler over here, this would also bind an event. So I have refreshed it. Clicking on class login, it just gives the alert messages, and it also changes the state. So these are all the three approaches we have seen in this tutorial, and mostly I'll be using all the event handlers in this particular format in going forward in this particular tutorial. And yeah, and there are a lot of performance issues would be present in the first approach, whichever that I have mentioned. Even in the second approach, it is not advisable because you are calling a arrow function inside an arrow function, which would generate an error. And third approach and fourth approach is a better approach in using the project, and I'll be using the fourth one going forward in all the tutorials, so that it is very easily binded rather than using the first two approaches that we have seen in this tutorial and in the previous tutorial. So that's all from today. In the next tutorial, I'll come up with some other new topics. Thanks, and have a nice day ahead.